Hello, and welcome to Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. This is lesson number 17, and we are on our fourth lesson in rule number 4. Last week, we talked about the fact that we should not compare ourselves to other people because it is a comparison of apples and oranges. That's an idiom in English. It's apples and oranges. It is not a fair comparison. We are individuals, and our lives are so complex that it is really not fair to compare two human beings. Last week we looked at all of the reasons why that is the case. This week we are going to consider the complexity of our own lives and how we can begin to even know ourselves, much less judge ourselves. And I just used a construction. How can we know ourselves, much less judge ourselves? To know ourselves is a rather small thing compared to judging ourselves. It is difficult for us even to know ourselves, much less be in a position to fairly judge ourselves. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Another idiom. Let us read the book. We are beginning at the very bottom of a page. Oops. And here's a big question. Who are you? You think you know, but maybe you don't. This is an enormous thesis of the next several paragraphs. The question is, who are you? And he will go on to support this thesis by making a case for the fact that you do not know yourself. You probably cannot know yourself. So let's see how he proceeds. And I guess I'll use black here. Who are you? You think you know, but maybe you don't. You are, for example, neither your own master nor your own slave. You cannot easily tell yourself what to do and compel your own obedience, any more than you can easily tell your husband, wife, son, or daughter what to do and compel theirs, meaning their obedience. You are interested in some things and not in others. You can shape that interest, but there are limits. Some activities will always engage you. Others simply will not. Let us go back. Who are you? You think you know, but maybe you don't. Probably you don't. You are, for example, neither nor. That means you are not this and you are not that. We have the positive either or, I am either slave or free. I must be one of them, but not both. Either or. Neither nor means I am not either one of them. So we have either or, you are one of them. Neither nor, you are neither of them. You are not either one. You are neither or neither. Those two pronunciations are equivalent. Neither, neither, they're equal ways of saying the same word. So we have either or, neither nor, or you could pronounce it either or, neither nor. You can also pronounce either as either. So it's either either or either. Sorry for all that. You are, for example, neither your own master nor your own slave. You are not a master fully. You are not a slave fully. Neither nor. You cannot easily tell yourself what to do. Tell yourself what to do means command. If you tell me what to do, you are giving me a command and I must obey. It says you cannot do that easily. You cannot tell yourself what to do and compel your own obedience any more than you can easily tell your husband, wife, or child what to do and compel their obedience. By the way, for many years, my sister used to say to me, "We are going to have supper at 6. Can you make sure your husband is there on time just this once?" And I would say, "I cannot make him do anything." And she did not believe me because in her family, she felt she had the power to compel obedience, to make her husband do something. In my family, I did not feel that I had the power to make anyone do anything. And my mother always said to me, "You would be surprised at the limits of what a parent can do to make a child do something." The word make means compel. So you can't compel yourself any more than you can compel other people. You can do it a little bit, but not a lot. And then another example of we don't know who we are. He is telling us who we are. He says, "You are interested in some things and not in others." Not interested in others. I am interested in music. I am not interested in sports. You can shape that interest, but there are limits. So I can try to cultivate an interest in sports because maybe my husband loves them, but I will never know every football score for 20 years of my favorite team the way he does. There are limits. I cannot do very much to change my interests. I can cultivate an interest a little bit, but there are limits. Some activities will always engage you, and others simply will not. Engage means capture my interest and make me interested. Some activities will do that. others simply will not. I'm going to give myself a new color. I like to have a new color for the next paragraph. You have a nature. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this one. Again, it is a main idea. You have a nature which is difficult to change or impossible. You can play the tyrant to it, but you will certainly rebel. How hard can you force yourself to work and sustain your desire to work? How much can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity turns to resentment? What is it that you actually love? What is it that you genuinely want? By the way, here we have an opportunity for pronunciation for you. Listen to my intonation, whether it goes up or down, because we have a series of questions. And most people think that we should go up at the end of a question when there is a question mark. But a lot of times in English, it goes down in certain questions. So listen to my intonation pattern as I read these questions. Okay. How hard can you force yourself to work and sustain your desire to work? How much can you sacrifice to your partner before generosity turns to resentment? What is it that you actually love? What is it that you genuinely want? Before you can articulate your own standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger, and then you must get to know yourself. What do you find valuable or pleasurable? How much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you require so that you feel like more than a beast of burden? How must you treat yourself so you won't kick over the traces and smash up your corral? You could force yourself through your daily grind and kick your dog in frustration when you come home. You could watch the precious days tick by, or you could learn how to entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself? Or are you a tyrant with yourself as slave? Let's start at the beginning. You have a nature. Let us get to know this nature. Here are some factors. One factor is you can play the tyrant to your nature. That play the tyrant means take on the role of tyrant. We can use that construction. I will play the fool, meaning I will act like a fool. I will play the captain to your low level, whatever is under a captain. Play means take on a role. So you can play the tyrant to your nature and try to compel it, but you in your nature will certainly rebel. How hard can you force yourself to work? Philosophically, this is a little difficult. What is you? You are forcing yourself to work. Which one is you and which is yourself? You have a will, but you also have a nature that is fixed and can only be changed a certain amount. How hard can you force yourself to work? So that hard goes with the word work. Hold on. Work hard. How hard can you make yourself work? And sustain your desire to work. So, how hard will you work? And how long will you even stay motivated as you are pushing yourself to do something? How much can you sacrifice to your partner? How much can you deny yourself and do what your partner, husband, wife, wants before generosity turns to resentment? Each one of us is different. Some people can give and give and give and still have joy in generosity. Others give a little and then begin to become resentful. They can only give a little. What is it that you actually love? Not just what do you love, but what do you actually love? The word actually means think hard, dig deep in your soul to come up with the hidden answer, the answer that you haven't thought of before. What do you actually love? Not what we all say, oh, I love pizza, I love my mother, I love my country. Those are shallow. What do you actually love? What is it that you genuinely want? That's the same as actually love, genuinely want. I want peace on earth. That is what everybody says in Miss America, the beauty pageant. They say, what is your wish to come true? They all say, my name is Kathy, and my wish is for peace on earth. That is a shallow response. What do you genuinely want? It will define who you are. Before you can articulate your own standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger, and then you must get to know yourself. Okay. It all comes down to this. We are trying to judge ourselves fairly and correctly. Before we can judge ourselves as a success or a failure, we must know ourselves. And before you can know yourself, you must take a step back and look at yourself as a stranger. Look at yourself as if you were a person you don't know, and begin to collect data, collect information about that person in the mirror, the person that you are. You must get to know yourself. Get to know a person takes time. To get to know a person takes some time. It takes some intuition. It takes some depth. It takes a lot of honesty. Before you can judge yourself as good or bad, success or failure, valuable or worthless, you must get to know yourself. More questions. What do you find valuable or pleasurable? How much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you require so that you feel like more than a beast of burden? Some people feel resentful, feel that they, quote, have no life. I haven't got a life. If they have to go to work every morning and come home in the evening, they feel I have no life. Others are happy with a regular job. How about you? How much leisure do you need? Leisure is free time. How much enjoyment do you need? How much reward do you need so that you can feel good about your life? Feel that you are not a beast of burden. You are more than that. Yes, you are a worker, but your life is valuable. So, how much leisure, enjoyment, and reward do you need? How must you treat yourself so you won't kick over the traces and smash up your corral? This is an analogy to a horse. A horse in a stable, in a corral. If he gets angry, he starts kicking and he breaks the walls and the door of his corral, and then he gallops away. How do you have to treat yourself so that you won't do that? Traces is the leather strips that they put on a horse to hold him, to hitch him to a cart or something like that. Treat yourself. How must you deal with your own desires so that you won't kick over the traces and smash up your corral? You could force yourself through your daily grind and kick your dog in frustration when you come home. Daily grind is a euphemism for the work that you have every single day. It's your daily grind. And it has a connotation of laborious, burdensome, not happy, not fun. So you can force yourself, meaning by self-discipline. You make yourself go to work every day, go through your daily grind, and kick your dog when you come home. This is a very common picture in American life of a man who is angry at work and frustrated, and his boss treats him badly, but he will never punch the boss in the nose. He comes home and kicks the dog. This is a picture of impotent resentment. Impotent. I'll write that. Impotent. Impotent. It's not pronounced impotent. It's pronounced impotent. And it also has a meaning of a man who cannot father a child or who cannot have sex. He is impotent. But it has a broader meaning of helplessness and hopelessness. So kicking your dog is a common picture of a man who has impotent frustration and resentment. He cannot express it to the person who makes him angry, so he comes and kicks his dog or his children or his wife. So you can kick your dog in frustration when you come home. You could watch the precious days tick by. So all of these are suggestions of things you might do if you don't like your life, if you are not satisfied. One option is to simply feel like a beast of burden. Another option is to force yourself through your daily grind and then kick your dog when you get home. Another option is to watch the precious days tick by, implying and do nothing while you are wasting your precious days in frustration. Or, this is the big or, you could learn how to entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. Entice is much different than force. You don't have to force yourself. You can entice yourself. I'm going to say force versus entice. Entice means reward. Reward yourself so that you will want to do something. Force means punish and push from behind. So you could entice yourself into sustainable, productive activity. This is very different, actually. And then a question. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself? Notice the intonation is now going up. I'm not quite sure why. I just hear it in my voice. These are questions where the intonation does go up. Do you ask yourself what you want? Do you negotiate fairly with yourself? Goes up. Or are you a tyrant with yourself as slave? I do know that when you are given a choice, do you want this or this? The intonation always goes down on a question like that. Whereas if it is a simple, I'm not really sure why it goes up sometimes, but I know for choices, it goes down. Well, let's continue. More questions. When do you dislike your parents, your spouse, or your children, and why? What might be done about that? What do you need and want from your friends and your business partners? So these are more diagnostic questions, questions that will reveal something about you. Interesting and important questions. This is not a mere matter of what you should want. I'm not talking about what other people require of you or your duties to them. I'm talking about determining the nature of your moral obligation to yourself. Should might enter into it because you are nested within a network of social obligations. Should is your responsibility, and you should live up to it. But this does not mean you must take the role of lapdog, obedient and harmless. That's how a dictator wants his slaves. Let's go back to the beginning of the paragraph. So our transition is it's simply more questions. When do you dislike your parents, your spouse, or your children, and why? So when here means under what circumstances do you find yourself disliking the people you love? Why would you ever dislike the people you love? For example, if you dislike your wife when she gives you orders, that tells something about you, etc. What might be done about that? Anytime you have that, you must find the reference, and the reference is disliking your loved ones. So what might be done about it when you dislike your loved ones? What could change that? Because it's negative. It's something you don't want, to dislike your loved ones. What might be done about that? What do you need and want from your friends and your business partners? What do you need? What do you want? I need my business partners to do their job. I want them to do it pleasantly and in a friendly manner and on time and to a high degree of excellence. What do you need is the basic requirement. What do you want is the icing on the cake. What do you need from your business partners and friends, and what do you want? This is not a mere matter of what you should want. I'm not talking about what other people require from you or your duties to them. I should want peace on earth. And that should be what I want. But maybe it's not what I really want. So, again, we must dig deep and be honest about what we really want. Not talking about what other people require from you. Someone may tell me I should want something, or my duties to them. All of these things are external. The question is, what is unique to me in my own nature? I'm talking about determining the nature of your moral obligation to yourself. So the nature of your moral obligation to yourself. What do you owe yourself in order to be happy and to be willing to have sustainable, productive activity? Okay, should might enter into it. Now, if I was not reading this in a certain way, this might have been a confusing sentence to you. In italics here, should is becoming a concept. So what this means is the fact that there is objective moral constraints on you might enter into the question. So the concept of moral obligations coming from God, what we should do, might enter into it. So that concept is all part of this word. Moral obligations, the shoulds of our world, might enter into this discussion because you are nested within a network of social obligations. Nesting is one inside another. For example, if you have a big bowl in your kitchen, and then a medium bowl in your kitchen, and then a small bowl inside that, and maybe a little bitsy bowl that's for dipping sauce, and they all nest in each other, all in one. You are nested within a network, a complex compilation of social obligations. For example, you must take care of your parents. You must take care of your children. You must give some time to your friends. You must be available to your boss and your work. You have a lot of social obligations. Should is your responsibility. Again, should is your responsibility. You are responsible to do what is objectively required by God or by the universe of you. Yes, you must consider that. So you should live up to it. Notice this should is just a grammatical term, meaning you ought to live up to it. So, moral obligations are your responsibility and you should live up to them. But this does not mean you must take the role of a lapdog, obedient and harmless. So, a lapdog is harmless and obedient. So, in other words, that's how a dictator wants his slaves. So he is making a distinction between a person who only does what he is told and doesn't have a personality of his own, a desire. Every time we say to him, which restaurant should we go to? He says, I'm good. Whatever you want is fine with me. He never has an opinion for himself. What do you want to do for your birthday? Whatever is easiest for you. That kind of person, Jordan Peterson is saying, he doesn't even know who he is. Jordan Peterson is telling us to find out who we really are. I once knew a woman who had some mental problems, only slight. She seemed perfectly normal to me, but she kept getting into bad relationships with men who abused her physically. And she even got into relationships occasionally with nice men who had never been violent. And those men also became violent with her. She incited violence from men. So she went to a psychiatrist. And one thing that I thought was interesting, she told me, she said she did not know what she wanted. She did not know how she felt at any moment. And the psychiatrist told her she should look in a mirror to see if she herself was happy or sad. She couldn't tell what she wanted. So she had to begin by looking at her face in a mirror and saying, does that person look happy or sad? So let's continue. One more color. We'll go to red. Dare to be dangerous. I'm going to highlight that, because some of these things are good theses to keep our mind on what the main point is. So first we're talking about being a lapdog, obedient and harmless, transitioning into the difference. Dare to be dangerous. Dare to be truthful. Dare to articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, what would really justify your life. If you allowed your dark and unspoken desires for your partner, for example, to manifest themselves, if you were even willing to consider them, you might discover that they were not so dark, given the light of day. You might discover instead that you were just afraid, and so pretending to be moral. You might find that getting what you actually desire would stop you from being tempted and straying. Are you so sure that your partner would be unhappy if more of you rose to the surface? The femme fatale and the anti-hero are sexually attractive for a reason. So, in the previous paragraph, he was saying, you don't think of what you should be, think of who you really are. And in this paragraph, he is challenging us to dare to be dangerous, dare to be truthful. A dare is something which is scary and dangerous itself. Children dare each other to do stupid, crazy, reckless things. I dare you to climb the tree and jump out. I dare you to walk on the roof of the house. I dare you to jump into the water when it is cold. So he is saying, dare to be dangerous. In other words, not to be safe. The Miss America says, I wish for heaven on earth, or I wish for world peace. She is not being dangerous. If she said, I wish for a husband who would treat me like a lady, not like a feminist, that would be daring to be dangerous. Women are not allowed to want to be treated like a lady anymore. Dare something dangerous. Dare to be truthful. We are so hidden, so afraid that if our dark secrets were seen by our friends would hate us and despise us. So we lie and we say, oh, I just like good stuff. And we are afraid to reveal what we really want. Dare to articulate yourself. Articulate is to speak clearly. And when you articulate yourself, you are revealing yourself clearly. You are defining yourself verbally. Dare to articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, so what would really justify your life. People are so afraid of what they really want that they won't even look at it. They won't admit it. They should at least become aware of what they really want. What would justify their life? Justify your life means make you into an individual, someone who has a contribution to the world that is unique, not just the same as everybody else. What would justify your life? So, dare to be truthful, dare to articulate yourself and express, or at least become aware of, what would really justify your life. Question. If you allowed your dark and unspoken desires for your partner, for example, I'm going to change colors now. This is a different idea. If you allowed your dark and unspoken desires for your partner, for example, to manifest themselves. Okay, so partner usually means sexual partner. In this case, I think he is talking about sex. Dark and unspoken desires. So maybe for something that is not standard sex, what we call vanilla sex. If you allowed your dark and unspoken desires, what you would like to do sexually, for example, to manifest themselves, to be seen so that your partner at least even knows what you would prefer. If you were even willing to consider them, because most people won't even consider those dark, unspoken desires, you might discover that they were not so dark, given the light of day. The light of day means being brought out into the open. There are many things which, when they are hidden in shame, seem enormous. And when they are brought out and spoken of, you see that they're really not that big a deal. This, by the way, is the genius of confession. If a person commits sin and then hides it in the dark, they hide it, they keep it hidden, then that sin becomes huge in their mind and imagination and makes them afraid that they will be discovered. And then they lie, and then they pretend, and they cover it. But if they would only confess it, bring it into the light, they would then see it might be nothing. Maybe forgiven just like that. Maybe even become part of a story of redemption. So, this is a spiritual principle that you should bring everything into the light of day. You should live in the light, not have secrets from yourself and from your brothers and sisters in Christ. So, you might discover that they were not so dark given the light of day. You might discover instead that you were just afraid and so pretending to be moral. So what he is saying is, whatever dark, unspoken desire you may have, you may be so afraid of your own darkness that you are pretending to like vanilla sex, or you are pretending to like whatever non-sexual, whatever restaurant your partner likes, or whatever birthday activity your partner wants to give you, or you are just pretending because you are afraid of yourself. You are pretending to be moral. You might find that getting what you want, getting what you actually desire, remember, go deep, what you really, really desire, would stop you. Where are we? Oh, darn. It erased a bunch of my colors. Oh, well. Would stop you from being tempted and from straying. So maybe Jordan Peterson has had a client who was very tempted to have an affair with another woman other than his wife. Or maybe he was always looking at pornography and ruining his marriage with his wife. But to his wife, he always said, "Oh, I like whatever you like." Maybe if he would be more honest about what he wanted, it would help him not go have an affair and do pornography. That's what he is saying. Are you so sure that your partner would be unhappy if more of you rose to the surface? Are you so sure? Are you really, really sure? Are you so sure that you are willing to become resentful and stray and ruin your marriage? You might be wrong. The femme fatale and the anti-hero are sexually attractive for a reason. A femme fatale is like a bad woman, very, very sexy, sexy, sexy bad woman. And an anti-hero is basically a bad man, like a James Bond. A man who has no morals, but lots of strength. Anti-hero. Many of us are trying to be heroes and denying the anti-hero. I'm not saying anything about this. I'm only explaining the English. Okay, that's all the time we have for now. We're going to have to stop. It will be interesting to see next week where he goes with this. See you next week.